Picture this, the city outside is asleep, the kind of hush that makes even elevators whisper. But in the glass penthouse, 40 floors up, the lights are still on. Ethan Cross. Yeah, that Ethan Cross paces his story like the floor owes him answers. He's the CEO of a tech firm that could buy a small island and label it sandbox. And tonight, he's stuck on a problem that's been bleeding the company dry. $200 million on the line, a flagship system frozen mid-launch, weeks of bugs, consultants charmed by their own slide decks, senior engineers who can juggle 6 monitors and still miss the one log line that matters. Ethan has burned through every option. Every hour he waits, another headline gets closer to writing itself. He heads to the kitchen for more coffee because, of course, he does. And that's when he hears it, a rhythmic clicking from down the hall. Not the HVAC, not the clock. Keystrokes, fast, confident keystrokes. At 1:57 a.m., in a study no one has permission to touch. He follows the sound. He pushes open the door to his office, and there she is, Lily, the new maid. Blonde, young, polite, quiet. The kind of person most people don't look at twice unless she's standing directly in their way. She's been on the job less than 2 weeks. Ethan said maybe 5 words to her if thanks and goodnight count separately. But right now, she's in his chair, facing his screen, typing like she knows exactly where she's going. What the hell are you doing? The words are out before he can soften them. Lily flinches hard, ripping her hands away from the keyboard like it's hot. I'm sorry, she says, already backing up. I wasn't trying to mess with anything. I saw something that looked wrong. You're not supposed to touch that, Ethan says, voice flat, unreadable. He moves around the desk, ready for the mess he's about to have to fix. Except there isn't a mess. There's a solution. He scrolls, frowns, scrolls again. The function that's been choking their entire release, the one his senior team has been poking at for weeks, is right, clean. Not just patched, architected. She didn't slap duct tape on a crack. She removed the crack and poured a new foundation. He checks it again and again. Triple checks the inputs, the outputs, the way her logic handles the edge cases. It's elegant. It's obvious the way all great fixes make you feel dumb for not seeing them sooner. How did you know what you were looking at? Ethan asks finally, eyes still on the screen. I studied computer science, Lily says, softer now, for a while. Where? She hesitates like the answer might break something. MIT. I had to drop out. My mom got sick. We lost our place. I took whatever work I could. There's no apology in her voice, no pity plea, just fact. Ethan looks at her, really looks beyond the uniform and the bucket parked by the door. This isn't luck. This is a trained mind that never got to finish the lab. You rewrote the entire function, he says. I only changed a few things. She says, hands clasped small. I didn't mean to touch anything important. You just saved a multi-million-dollar project. Her eyes widen. I did. He nods, still stunned. Don't apologize, he adds when she tries to. And when he says it, something in the air shifts like 2 tuning forks finally found the same note. Lily, he says quietly, you're not just a maid. No, she whispers, but it's all I am right now. Ethan doesn't argue. He's not a man who argues with data. He gestures to the screen, instead, have to keep himself from pacing again. Maybe not for long. He doesn't sleep that night. He opens logs, traces, calls stacks, runs a quick suite against her changes. Everything holds, better than holds. The performance graph finally looks like a heartbeat and not a flat line. Around 3:20 a.m., he drags a folder to the edge of his desk and deliberately plants a small trap, a validation loop that looks harmless until load spikes and the whole thing deadlocks. Nothing malicious, just diagnostic bait, a simple test to see if he imagined the last hour. By morning, the folder is back in place, and inside is a neat pencil note in the margin, fixed validation loop error. Hope that's okay? No signature, no ego, just the work. He smiles despite himself. This isn't a fluke. The next day, he has his assistant pull Lily's file. There isn't much to find, no diploma, no certifications, a resume that looks like someone running on fumes, waitressing, retail temp, janitorial, the domestic agency, listing that got her into the building. One line blinks like a red LED, Massachusetts Institute of Technology Computer Science. Top decile. Withdrawn, no reason listed. The kind of line that says everything and nothing. That evening, he catches her polishing the marble stairs outside his study, hands moving with the same deliberate precision she'd used on his coat. "How long have you been doing this?" he asks. "Cleaning." She glances up, surprised he's talking to her. "A few years, on and off. And before that, school." A small smile, then a shrug. "Things fell apart. My dad made some bad investments. We lost everything. My mom's health declined. Bills don't care if you're in the top 10% of any class." "MIT right," he says. Her eyes flicker. "You looked me up." "I look up everyone who touches my coat," he says. It's half a joke and half the truth. She laughs once, short resigned, not bitter. It sounds like a door closing gently. After she leaves, Ethan starts noticing things he should have seen earlier. How she sets his grandfather clock 4 minutes forward because it's been lagging and she knows he likes to be 5 minutes early. How the books in his study quietly reorganize themselves by topic and then by author, as if chaos should never have the last word. How she pauses at the photo of his late mother on the hallway table and wipes the frame with the kind of care that doesn't show up on an invoice. She's invisible to almost everyone, and somehow the most visible thing in his day. He doesn't believe in luck. He believes in system structure testing data. So he starts testing her. Little logic puzzles appear where she might find them, a half-finished snippet left open on his second monitor, a stack of drafts with one line that's almost but not quite right, a pseudo-schema that will only balance if you see the pattern hiding under the naming convention. Nothing flashy, just enough to make a trained mind itch. And every time the pencil notes return, not sure if this helps, but maybe, or sorry if this is wrong, just a thought. Every time she is right, every time she refuses credit. He tries not to make it weird. He fails a little. He's suddenly working from home, more citing remote meetings that could have been emails lingering in the study as if the room can help him think. When he hears the soft knock and the even softer, "Excuse me," he asks for a fresh notebook. The grid ones, or claims the printer jammed it didn't, or pretends the coffee maker acts up. It does, but not for her. She never asks why a billionaire CEO seems to need help with the most human problems in the house. She just nods, fixes the thing, and disappears down the hall with that quick, apologetic smile that says she'd rather the world never look straight at her. One night, when the office is washed in monitor blue and the city has shrunk to a constellation of windows, Ethan scrolls through a diagnostic report from the team and mutters something profane. The back end is unstable. The leads are arguing about corrupted modules. Everyone has a theory and no agreement. Lily slips in quietly with a cloth and a small caddy. She doesn't speak. She never does when he's reading, but as she passes, she glances at the matrix on his screen and pauses just a second longer than a passerby would. "I don't think it's the code," she says, finally so softly that if he wanted to pretend he didn't hear it, he could. He looks up. "Excuse me?" "The problem," she says, stepping closer but keeping a respectful distance. "It's not in the code itself. It's how the data is being routed. Between the security module and the cache, the verification calls are stacking. It's like a traffic jam in the access queue." He stares. That was the team's week 1 hypothesis, floated hand-waved, then buried under louder ideas. Lily says it without bravado, like she's pointing out the fire extinguisher on the wall he keeps forgetting is there. "You're saying the bottleneck is permissions priority," he says carefully. She nods. "Too many layers without a reprioritized path. Under load, you're verifying twice, maybe more. It looks safe on paper and dies in production." "How do you know that?" She flushes. "I built something like it in school. It froze under stress. I lost a week to a double check I thought was best practice. It wasn't." He swivels back to the screen, pulls up the intervals, and watches the lag line up with security pings like a confession. He doesn't swear this time. He just exhales long and low like someone who's been swimming too long and finally hits air. 3 weeks, he says. $1 million in salaries. And you saw it in 30 seconds. I just saw the pattern. You saw what no one else could, and you said it out loud. His voice is softer now. Not grateful exactly, not yet. Something closer to relieved respect. Silence stretches between them, the good kind. That night, when she's gone, Ethan sits alone in his study and says the quiet part into the empty room. You don't belong in that uniform. And he knows, because he always knows that she isn't going to be the one to take it off. If anything's going to change, it starts with him. The next morning, he sets 2 mugs of coffee on his desk and waits for the soft knock, for the quiet footfall, for the one person in the building who keeps solving problems without ever claiming them. When she appears in the doorway, he doesn't point at a broken printer or an empty notebook. Lily, he says, steady, certain. Do you have a minute? Ethan doesn't ask for help often. He assigns it, delegates it, funds it. But on this morning, with 2 mugs steaming between them and the city unspooling into daylight beyond the glass, he asks, do you have a minute, he says. Lily hovers in the doorway like a person trained to never take up space she hasn't paid for. Of course. He gestures to the chair across from his desk, the one reserved for people who sign things, not wipe them. She sits carefully back straight, palms on her knees, as if the cushion might eject her if she relaxes. I want you to consider working with me, he says, not as a cleaner, as a technical assistant, temporary flexible hours. Help me troubleshoot what you already see. Silence expands full of unasked questions. Lily's eyes flick to the monitors, to the terminal, still open to the log graph that finally looks like a living thing. When she looks back, she's shaking her head. I'm flattered, Mr. Cross, she says, but I'm not qualified. I don't even have a degree. I'm just... Don't, he says, firm, but gentle. Don't let that uniform explain you to yourself. The words land, and she looks away. For a moment, he sees the weight she carries, builds a mother's chart, the math of survival. She has the kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from moving furniture. It comes from moving entire lives by inches. I won't pressure you, Ethan adds. If you change your mind, the offer stands. She nods, not yes, not no, just a very careful maybe. That night, he forgets a folder on the edge of his desk. Notes from a broken beta test with one fault line scripted into the middle like a dare. In the morning, the function has been refactored. In the margin, a pencil sketch of a state machine with a small arrow labeled Don't Re-Verify Here. No signature, no victory parade, just the fix. It becomes their routine engineered coincidence. At night, Lily drifts through the room like a quiet tide and leaves the shoreline cleaner than she found it. By morning, Ethan reports progress to an executive team that thinks insomnia is a strategy. He does not mention her, not because he's ashamed, because he understands timing risk and how this building treats outliers, brilliant or not. He notices how she protects his time without being asked. A tray appears on the desk one morning with a sandwich, fruit, a glass of orange juice. Not expensive, just thoughtful. Beside it, a note, don't skip breakfast just because you're thinking of everyone else. It hits harder than the coffee. That night, Lily finds a sticky note on the laptop's edge. Thank you. It was perfect. Ethan sees it hours later and feels something shift. Not the numbers on the dashboard, not the stock ticker, something older and simpler, the sound of being seen. He starts staying home even more. The CTO texts twice. Are you okay? The COO leaves a voicemail that is basically a spreadsheet trying to have a heart. He replies to both with the universal language of power results. And then the board notices. The next status meeting is a pressure cooker polished shoes paper thin patience. Ethan presents the turnaround stability throughput, rollback, prevention, error rates shaved to fractions. There's real applause, the kind that comes from relief. But relief curdles quickly into curiosity. Someone wrote those lines of code, a director says, arms folded. If we have a game changer on payroll, we should meet them. Another voice piles on. This company doesn't run on ghosts. Ethan's jaw works. He had promised himself, and by extension Lily, that he would not shove her into the spotlight before she was ready. Protection isn't secrecy. It's choosing the right moment to open the door. Let's focus on the success, he says. We are the first, director replies. We want to know its source. He holds their stare for 3 full seconds and then nods once. I'll arrange it. The room exhales. The trap is set, not for him, but for every instinct he has to move too fast or not fast enough. He leaves the meeting with the taste of iron in his mouth, the kind that shows up when you've bitten your tongue instead of burning a bridge. Elsewhere, life continues at ground level. Lily rides an older bull whose shocks gave up sometime during a previous election cycle. She gets off 2 stops early because the walk helps her think. On the way to her building, the streetlights stutter and a corner bodega owner in a Mets cap says, "Morning, Lily," without looking up from his crossword. She smiles back, because surviving is easier when you collect the small kindnesses. Her apartment is modest and arranged like a mind that respects order. There's a folding desk with a second-hand monitor and a keyboard that sticks at the S. On the wall, a thumbtacked schedule, her shifts at the agency, her mother's appointments, payment, due dates written in a clean hand. On the dresser, a photo of Lily in a hoodie, a campus green behind her eyes, bright enough to make the present feel like a clerical error. She eats a simple dinner and FaceTimes the care center. Her mother smiles through the screen, a little foggy, a little fragile, but good. Better. A new specialist rotated in this week, the nurse says. More attentive. Lily thanks her, and the call ends. After she opens an old folder labeled Algorithms and reads the scribbles inside, like a language she once spoke fluently. She runs her finger over a problem she solved at 3 a.m. 5 years ago and feels a familiar click, the internal yes, that shows up when the pattern reveals itself. The next evening, as she polishes the edge of Ethan's desk, she spots a crash report. Not the trap kind, this is the real deal. The team has mislabeled a concurrency issue as a memory leak. She doesn't touch the file. She touches the whiteboard. 3 lines, a tiny diagram, a suggestion, prioritize right through on burst, throttle verification, stop double handshaking. She adds a small, maybe because humility is protective gear. Then she disappears like a shadow when the light changes. The fix works. The CTO pings Ethan, finally breathing. The COO sends a thumbs up emoji, which somehow reads like an apology. Ethan finds himself watching more than he should. The way Lily cleans the spaces no one sees, like the underside of the staircase rail care for what's hidden. The way she hums when she thinks she's alone, a melody that sounds like motion. The way she makes herself smaller to fit the expectations around her, and then grows 3 sizes in the margins of a code review no one knows she touched. He's careful with the line between gratitude and saviorism. He doesn't want to rescue her. He wants to remove the debris blocking her path and then get out of the way. There's a difference. So he starts with what he knows: structure. He drafts a simple private agreement, technical assistant consulting, flexible hours, confidential projects, compensation equal to senior engineer day rate. He prints it but doesn't slide it across the desk. Not yet. He sits with his assistant Mara, the rare ops mind, who can juggle fire and water, and says, "Find out if we can offer tuition later without triggering publicity." Quietly. Mara notes the way operators do when their to-do list already lives a week in the future. When Ethan returns to the penthouse that night, there's a fresh notepad on his desk, graph paper, the ones he likes, plus a tiny unbranded mechanical pencil. It's nothing. It's everything. I see what you need even when you don't say it. He pulls the chair back, sits, and this time leaves no puzzle. Just a clean workspace. An invitation. Lily pauses at the threshold, sees the empty desk, and looks uncertain, as if the absence of a problem removes her permission to be there. "Do you need anything else?" she asks. "Yeah," he says, and he means it. "Your eyes on a meeting tomorrow. If you're willing." "My eyes." He smiles. "Just listen. Tell me what I missed." She hesitates, then nods. "Okay." The next day, in the boardroom, she sits in the back unnoticed. The conversation up front is every corporate cliché dressed in bespoke, except the stakes are very real. Ship dates, clients with evaporating patience, a risk committee that throws around phrases like scenario planning to avoid saying we were scared. Ethan presents the stability numbers and the updated rollout plan. Executives pepper him with questions designed less to reveal truth than to establish who will be blamed if truth goes sideways. He answers plainly. He doesn't overown and he doesn't underplay. He is for once the calmest person in the room. Then the question returns, this time with teeth. "We need to meet the person driving these fixes," the audit chair says. "Soon." "I'll arrange it," Ethan repeats. When the meeting ends, he finds Lily near the door. "What did I miss?" he asks. She tilts her head. "They aren't worried about the code," she says. "They're worried about the narrative. They want to know if the story has a hero they can point to if something goes wrong or right. That obvious. To someone who's been invisible," she says, and the words are soft but cut like glass. He takes a breath. "If I..." Introduced you, he says carefully. Would you want that? Lily looks past him at the long table, the leather chairs, the skyline grinding against the glass. She imagines 100 eyes, 100 assumptions, 100 ways. This could turn into a headline instead of a life. I don't know, she says honestly. I'm not ready to be paraded. Then we won't. He says immediate and complicated. Not until you're ready. A bit. She nods grateful and slips away. Ethan watches the door close and understands something new about leadership. Sometimes protecting talent means arguing with the very machine you built. Sometimes it means putting your body between a person and a narrative that would eat them for breakfast. That night, the decision he's been circling finally resolves. If the room wants honesty, he'll give it to them, but on his terms. Not as a magician's reveal, not as a trophy, as a human introduction. He drafts an internal invite for a quarterly briefing, standard format, standard timing. Then he adds a single unspectacular line at the end, opening remarks to include a short story about hidden innovation. No names, no fireworks, just a door quietly unlocked. He closes his laptop, looks out at the city, and feels the future lean forward. Quarterly briefings at Crosstech are theater with spreadsheets, rows of executives in tailored suits, a stage washed in cool light, a screen so large it could double as a city billboard. The air hums with performance earnings, pipelines, projections, and a thin constant fear who will be blamed if the line on slide 7 bends the wrong way. Ethan takes the stage to scattered applause. He doesn't sell the turnaround with fireworks. He tells the truth cleanly. Stability restored, throughput up, latency down, error rates shaved to noise. The numbers speak first because numbers don't get defensive on Q&A. Then he does the thing that isn't on the run of show. Before we move on, he says I want to start with a story. Not about revenue, but about attention. Not about titles, but about contribution. The room quiets in that particular way rooms do when they sense reputational risk. A few months ago, we faced the most expensive stall in our company's history. Ethan continues. We threw money, minds, and hours at it. We were clever. We were loud. And then a fix appeared, clean, elegant, correct, not from our labs, not from our top floor. He glances to the back, past directors and SVPs and the PR team, ready to spin anything into everything. Lily stands there, dressed in her plain uniform, a microfiber cloth in one hand, eyes wide like someone who just realized she's in the photograph, not behind it. Lily, Ethan says, voice gentler, would you join me for a moment? A ripple moves through the room, confusion, then curiosity, then a few whispers that carry the brittle tone of bias. Lily swallows. For a heartbeat, she does not move, and then she does, because courage isn't a feeling, it's the next step. Ethan meets her at the stairs and offers a hand. She takes it like it's a lifeline and an apology all at once. On stage, under the soft wash of white light, she looks like what she is, unadorned, alert, real. This is Lily Brooks, Ethan says. She was hired to keep our space clean. Instead, she kept our systems honest. Silence the good kind, then a single clap, then another, until the room stands. The applause is not manic, it's grateful. It sounds like relief finding a target. Lily blinks hard. She doesn't reach for the mic. Ethan gives it to her anyway, because ownership is more than a line item. Sometimes it's a chance to speak. I didn't mean to interrupt. She says, voice small, but steady. I saw things that didn't add up, and I wrote down what did. That's all. There's a low, appreciative laugh, nervousness releasing itself. One director leans forward, suddenly warmer, MIT, right? Lily nods once. I didn't finish. No apology. Just the fact of a life that rerouted itself under pressure. Ethan steps back half a step, the physical version of making space. You don't need a credential to deserve credit, he says. You need contribution. She made one. A senior engineer, sharp suit, sharper jawline calls from row 3. You refactored access priority. Lily looks toward the voice. I stopped verifying twice, she says simply. And I stopped pretending safety lives in repetition instead of design. It lands. Technically correct and frankly impossible to argue with without admitting you missed it. The applause swells again, and then the moment is suddenly over, because moments end fast in rooms that run on time. Ethan thanks everyone, cues the next agenda item, and walks Lily off the stage. In the wings away from the heat of the lights, he lowers his voice. You okay? She exhales a shaky, almost laugh. I think so. You were perfect, he says, meaning it. I was honest, she says. That's all I know how to be. The meeting adjourns. The hallway outside the conference hall becomes a river of silk ties and quiet verdicts people orbit. Ethan, congratulations, qualms disguised as questions, questions disguised as congratulations. He answers what deserves answers. He lets statements sink on their own weight. Mara, the chief of staff, with a sixth sense for storms, intercepts a VP whose smile looks like a spreadsheet. If you need to debrief on how we highlight contributors, she says pleasantly, book with me. Translation: we're not doing drive-by skepticism today. Lily stands near the wall, clutching the cloth she forgot to pocket, unsure where to be. A young developer with lavender hair approaches her like you approach a comet that entered your atmosphere and somehow didn't burn up. I read your note on the cache path, the developer says. It helped, then quieter. Thanks for seeing it. Lily's shoulders loosen by a millimeter. You're welcome. The skeptical SVP from the status meeting steps up next, tone suddenly performative. Quite the story, he says. We'll get you processed through HR. Badge success, you know. Lily instinctively steps back. Ethan steps in, not aggressive, just present. Mara will coordinate, he says. And for the record, this isn't a mascot moment. It's a change in how we attribute work. The SVP's smile freezes, then thaws. Of course. He moves on. That's fine. Not every mind changes in the same week. Ethan turns to Lily. Walk. They detour to a small cafeteria no one uses before 10 a.m. He sets two waters on the table and slides a single-page agreement across the surface. No fanfare, no trapdoors. Technical assistant consulting, flexible hours, confidential projects, compensation, senior engineer day rate. There's a clause about healthcare coverage during the engagement, another about credit on internal commit logs where her work touches production. Read it, he says. Mark it up. Or don't. Say no if no is right. Lily scans the page, eyes flicking at speed. Why me, she asks. And it isn't self-pity. It's a real question from someone who has learned to interrogate good news. Because you're already doing the work, he says. This makes it fair. And attention? She gestures vaguely toward the theater they just left. We'll meter it, he says. On your terms. No press, no panels, no parade. You tell me how visible you want to be and when. She nods as if cataloging a variable she didn't expect to control. I need to think. Good, he says. Thinking is our only hope. She almost smiles, almost. The following week unfurls with a new rhythm. Lily still cleans because habits built for survival don't end on schedule. But now she also sits in two closed-door working sessions, listening more than speaking, drawing small diagrams that unlock big arguments. The first time she corrects a senior engineer, she does it as a question. The second time, she doesn't have to, because the senior engineer asks her a question first. Ethan watches the social math rewrite itself in real time. Credit starts to flow differently. Meetings get a hair quieter and a shade more precise. When Lily says, that path looks like it was optimized for a happy day, not a real one, three heads nod before anyone writes it on the board. He keeps his promise about visibility. No internal blog posts, no external look at our culture victory lap. He changes the source of truth doc from author team to author team with Lily Brooks and lets the commit history make the case. Then the wider world sniffs the story anyway, because stories like this leak through the seams. A board member tells a friend tells a reporter calls PR calls Ethan with a voice that is part warning, part opportunity. Do we confirm? PR asks. Not yet, Ethan says, not without her consent. Understood. Consent becomes the operating word. Consent and capacity. Lily's life still runs on a blue-collar schedule. Bosses, meal prep, care center calls. She can refactor a permissions QA in 10 minutes and still spend 20 waiting on hold to confirm her mother's meds arrived. Ethan keeps one eye on the code base and the other on the infrastructure around Lily's real life. If he can remove friction, he will quietly, not to save her, to clear a path she should have had. One evening, after a punishing load test finally passes, he finds a small tray on his desk. Again, a sandwich fruit, orange juice. The sticky note says only, "Don't forget you're human." He laughs, surprised, by how much it feels like being seen, then leaves her a thank you note shaped like respect, a printed agenda, inviting her to a design review as a named participant, not a shadow. The next morning, she shows up 10 minutes early. Just to listen, she says. Exactly, he replies. That's the job most days. In the review, a heated debate circles whether to add yet another layer of verification to be safe. Lily waits. Then she says, almost to herself, I think we keep conflating safety with ritual. The room pauses. She diagrams an alternative path. Same guarantees fewer round trips. The architect in the corner, the one whose face never moves, raises a hand. Run it, he says. No one argues. Afterward, in the hallway, Ethan falls into step beside her. I have to ask, he says. How visible do you want to be at the next all hands not a sentence, a minute on stage, 0 is allowed. She considers thumb worrying the edge of her notebook. Maybe a sentence, she says. From you. Then, if anyone asks me to speak, I'll say a sentence back. Done. He means it. This time, the introduction won't be a reveal. It'll be a calibration credit shaped to fit a person, not a headline. That night, as the city folds itself into neon and noise, Ethan opens his calendar and adds one quiet line to next week's agenda, opening a story, hidden innovation continued. He closes the laptop, feeling the company tilt 1 degree closer to how it should have been all along. A week after the briefing, the building hums with a new kind of energy, the kind that shows up when a near disaster decides to behave. Servers stay green, charts slope the right way. Meetings get 5 minutes shorter because the room finally trusts the plan. Outside those walls, the story grows legs. A board member's "you'll never guess" becomes a journalist's "sources say," and suddenly PR has a tidy list of outlets asking if Crosstech can confirm the rumor about the maid who solved a $200 million stall. The emails use words like remarkable and inspirational, and Ethan's least favorite, unlikely. He tells PR the same thing every time. No comment. Not now. He means not without her consent. The difference matters. Inside the life that doesn't trend, Lily keeps her routine. Morning buzz quiet. Hello to the bodega owner coffee in a paper cup that leaks if you squeeze too hard. She still cleans because consistency is oxygen when the rest of your life has lived on cliffs. And she consults 2 or 3 focused sessions a week where she listens first, draws second, and speaks third. Her diagrams have a way of turning arguments into decisions. One afternoon, Ethan asks her to stop by his office. The windows cut the skyline into orderly rectangles. He slides an envelope across the desk, the way you slide something fragile across a counter. MIT reached out, he says. They want to reinstate your scholarship. They'll honor the credits you already earned. You could finish in under 2 years. For a second, Lily doesn't move. Her face is a fight between wonder and worry. That's generous, she says, but I can't go back. Why not? My mom, she says simply. She's stable but not well. If I leave town, there's no one to be with her. I won't do that again. Ethan's reply is instant and uncomplicated. Okay, no negotiation. No pep talk that starts with what if. Just a man who understands constraints are real, not character flaws. If that changes, the door stays open, he adds. On your timeline. She nods, the kind of nod that says gratitude, while bracing for the next bill. She leaves with the letter tucked carefully into her bag, hope folded into paper. 2 weeks later, Lily's phone rings while she's double knotting her sneakers. It's the care center. Hi, Lily, the nurse says. Just confirming your mother's new specialist starts this afternoon, and we've assigned a private care nurse for the next quarter. I didn't arrange that, Lily says, sitting down fast. It's already approved, the nurse replies. Looks like an anonymous sponsor. We'll text you the schedule. The call ends. The room holds still. For a long minute, Lily just stares at the wall, the way you stare at a miracle you didn't ask for, because asking is a luxury. She packs her bag. She takes the bus. She sits by her mother's bed that evening and watches the new nurse, a calm, competent woman with a voice like a steady metronome, adjust the IV fluff, the pillow, explain the plan. Her mother sleeps better that night than she has in months. The next morning, Lily doesn't knock. She walks straight into Ethan's office. He looks up, surprised by the storm in her eyes. You paid for my mother's treatment, she says, not a question. He doesn't deflect. She deserves the best care, he answers steady. You should have told me. Would you have accepted it if I had, he asks. Not unkind, just true. She falters. Because no, she wouldn't have. Pride and protection have been her armor for a long time. Why, she asks, and the word is small but heavy. Because you deserve a life. Lily, he says, the kind of sentence you say once clearly. Not just survival, a life with options. And because he hesitates, measuring impact against honesty. Because I want to see what happens when nothing is dragging you backward while you try to move forward. Tears arrive without drama, and she swipes them away, frustrated at her own eyes. I can't owe you, she says. I don't want a savior. You don't owe me, he says. If it helps, call it a loan. Or better, call it infrastructure. The company invests in servers so the work can run. I'm investing in the person who kept the work from burning down. Then write it down, she says, fierce through the shake in her hands. A real loan. Terms, payments. I'll pay every cent. He nods. Done. And it will be. Not a secret favor. A documented breach with a path off it. The anger leaves her posture the way steam leaves a kettle slowly, then all at once. Underneath it is something warmer, more dangerous relief. She exhales and sits suddenly tired. Thank you, she says, and it lands like a truth, not a surrender. That night, when she gets home, there's a small package on her thrifted desk. No logo, no ribbon. Inside, a thin, light laptop that feels like it was designed by someone who respects wrists. There's a folded card on the keyboard in neat handwriting. This is the first keyboard to ever save 200,000 out. Thought it belonged to you. She laughs through tears because the note is ridiculous and perfect, and most importantly, hers. She opens the lid. The welcome screen glows. The world tilts 2 degrees toward possible. She spends the next hour migrating old files and deleting noise. She names the machine like people name boats. She opens a clean IDE just to see the empty dark canvas. Her fingers hover over the keys. She types 3 lines and stops smiling. Because some nights, you don't need to write. You need to know you could. At work, the consulting expands by inches, never by edict. Lily sits in a postmortem and says, we designed this for a happy path. We should design for a human one. The room goes quiet, then scribbles. She asks a junior dev to walk her through their logic, and by the end of the conversation, they have refactored it. She annotates a spec with, this looks safe because it's symmetrical. It's safe once we respect the asymmetry of real traffic. The architect in the corner grunts. That's his version of applause. Ethan keeps his promise about visibility control. When a reporter calls again, he texts her, we can say no, or yes, or later. Your choice. She replies, later. He responds with a thumbs up and nothing else because restraint is a form of respect. He also keeps his promise about infrastructure. The next week, Mara walks Lily through a simple, boring loan agreement. No interest for 12 months, then a low rate after. A schedule Lily chose. Opt out if circumstances change. It's dignified on purpose. When Lily signs, she exhales in a way that sounds like a life re-entering its body. There are small moments of grace threaded through the days now. A developer in a band leaves a spare pair of noise-canceling headphones on her desk with a sticky note, for focus, not silence. The security guard by the north elevator waves her through like she's always belonged. The cantankerous build server is finally retired. Lily almost says a few words at its wake. Ethan watches the organization shift its weight. Credit travels more honestly. Meetings start with the question, what did we learn? Not who do we blame? And Lily, still quiet, still deliberate, remains allergic to fanfare. When someone refers to her as a genius, she flinches and says, I'm a pattern person. When someone says hero, she shakes her head and says, the code was just noisy. I listened. She still visits her mother every evening. The new nurse is steady, the specialist, curious and clear. Lily brings printouts of simple logic puzzles and works them while her mother doses. Not because they're hard, but because solving something small reminds her the bigger things are solvable too. One Thursday, tuning slide decks for an internal review. Ethan stops by her desk with a printed agenda. West Coast Tech Innovation Summit, he says casually, like he's asking if she wants coffee next month. She looks up. Okay. You're presenting with me, he adds. Not casual at all anymore. She blinks. Presenting. 10 minutes, he says. On hidden innovation. On designing for real life. On how we confuse safety with ritual. Use your voice, not mine. She opens her mouth, closes it, then says, the only honest thing available, I'm terrified. Good, he says. So am I. It means we're not faking it. He doesn't push. He hands her the agenda notes once and leaves her with the choice. She sits there a long time, staring at her name under his heart, racing like she's about to step onto a moving walkway. Then she pulls the new laptop toward her and types a title slide. Hidden innovation, what we don't see, is running everything. No logo, no clip art, just the work. For the first time, the future doesn't feel like a story other people get to tell. It feels like a room she can walk into on purpose. Public speaking isn't code. You can't step through it with a debugger or unit test your heart rate. Still, Lily treats the upcoming West Coast Tech Innovation Summit like any other hard problem. Define scope, identify constraints, build the simplest thing that can possibly work. She starts by listening. Ethan books a tiny conference room that sounds like a seashell when the HVAC kicks on. They run practice sessions with a whiteboard, no slides at first. Just ideas catching shape in dry erase loops. He sits in the back with a legal pad interrupting, only to ask the question he asks all his best people, where's the pattern? The pattern, Lily says slowly, is that companies confuse safety with ritual. We add layers to feel protected instead of designing paths that actually are. Keep that sentence, Ethan says. Lead with it. They rehearse twice a week. Ethan won't let her memorize. You don't need to sound polished, he says. You need to sound true. Lily won't let herself wing it. I need an outline, she replies. So I have the courage to leave it. They compromise a skeleton of 6 cues printed small tape to the inside of her palm-sized notebook. The night before the summit, Lily goes to the care center. Her mother dozes while a sitcom chuckles from a ceiling-mounted TV. Lily reviews the outline under the soft glow of the monitor, whispering the opening line until it feels like a borrowed truth she can finally own. On her way out, the nurse presses a thermos into her hand. For tomorrow, she says, and the kindness lands like a blessing. The venue is a glass and steel box, pretending to be effortless. Lanyards everywhere, the hum of big names, recognizing other big names, badge scanners, beeping like well-behaved birds. Ethan's keynote is slotted for 10:30 a.m. prime oxygen. Lily arrives early in a simple navy dress and flats hair, pulled back laptop in her backpack in case everything breaks at once. The backstage coordinator, efficient kind, the true engine of events, clips a mic to Lily's collar and says, "You're up after Ethan's first 8 minutes." Copy, Lily says, as if this is code deploy protocol. It helps. Ethan steps out to warm applause and opens with numbers, the honest kind, not the theater kind. Then he shifts, as scripted, and yet not rehearsed at all in how it feels. Hidden innovation built the products you love, he says. It also saved one you never saw almost fall apart. The room tilts forward. I've talked enough, he adds, glancing to the wings. It's time you heard from the person who taught my company the difference between ritual and safety. Lily walks into light. At first, she looks like what she is, someone who didn't think her life would ever include a stage. Her hands tremble then still as they find the edges of her notebook. She doesn't open it. I'm Lily, she says. I fix noisy systems. Sometimes the system is code. Sometimes it's how people make decisions. There's a laugh, surprised, not mocking. Good. We had a system failure, she continues, and our first instinct was to add layers. New checks, more verification, stricter gates. It felt safe because it felt busy, but the calls stacked. The queue choked. We were verifying twice and moving never. She draws a simple diagram on the confidence monitor with her words alone. You can feel the engineers in the room see it. You can feel the executives feel them seeing it. Safety isn't repetition, Lily says steady now, it's design. We didn't need more locks. We needed one good door with a line that moved. She tells the routing story without naming the company. She explains right through on words in language that respects both the problem and the audience. It's like letting ambulances use the shoulder so they don't get stuck behind the rules meant for everyone else. She points to the human layer alerts that made more noise than sense, dashboards that rewarded the wrong vanity metrics. If your telemetry makes your team feel small, she says softly, you don't have observability, you have anxiety. The line lands, hard. She closes without drama. Good software shouldn't make people feel small, she says. It should feel like someone's listening. Silence, the good kind. Then applause that starts warm and ends loud. A few people stand. Ethan doesn't. He is already on stage with her not behind her. He thanks the audience and the sponsors and the organizers, hits the final slide, and they exit together into the backstage shadow where air returns to lungs. You did it, he says quietly. I didn't faint, she answers, half laughing, half dazed. You did more than not faint, he says. You built a door. The after-panel scrums begin. A founder with sleep-deprived eyes asks 3 smart questions in a row. A senior architect wants to compare notes on throttling verification without creating edge case cliffs. A product lead asks for her deck. Lily smiles and says, there wasn't one, and the product lead looks both terrified and inspired. PR arrives scanning the perimeter for fires and opportunities. We've had 3 outlets request a quote, they tell Ethan, and 2 universities. Ethan looks at Lily. He doesn't answer for her. Later she says the word now a boundary she trusts. Later PR echoes learning fast. By afternoon, clips from the talk circulate, not because PR pushed them, but because attendees did. A sentence becomes a pull quote. Safety isn't repetition, it's design. Someone turns it into a slide template. Someone else prints it on a sticky and posts it above a team board. The internet will do what it does next. Lily keeps her phone in airplane mode and takes the bus home. On the right, a kid in a hoodie is solving a Rubik's Cube with that indifferent grace teenagers use to pretend they didn't practice. Lily watches the colors click into place and thinks about state machines and agency and how much of life is just learning to rotate the right face at the right time. That evening, the care center smells like soap and soft food. Her mother is awake and lucid, brighter than usual. You look taller, she says, smiling. I stood up, Lily answers, and her mother laughs, then drifts back to sleep with Lily's hand in hers. Back at Crosstech, outcomes get sturdier. The team implements the summit insights, not as vanity changes, but as policy no extra verification without a corresponding redesign of the path. Observability, dashboards that report what matters, not what flatters. Incident reviews that ask, how did the system set the person up to fail before who messed it up? You can feel morale lift, not because problems vanished, but because the problem finally makes sense. Mara circulates a short internal memo, attribution and visibility standards. It reads like common sense wrote itself down. Contributors will be credited by name on internal artifacts. Execs won't present fixes they didn't author without naming who did. We build careers, not myths, the last line says. The dog gets more quiet cheers than most product launches. With momentum comes invitations. One in particular is impossible to hide from the innovators of the Future Gala. The annual industry soiree, where the drinks are cold, the speeches warm, and the awards at least half accurate. An email arrives addressed to Lily and Ethan. Both, you are nominated for Most Influential Young Innovator and Executive Stewardship of Emerging Talent. The phrasing is PR polished. The subtext is simple. The room wants your story on its stage. Ethan forwards the note to Lily with a single line, we can say no, or we can write the terms. She stares at the screen a long time before replying. I don't want to be a mascot, she types. I want the work to matter after the room forgets my name. Then we go, he writes back, and we make the room remember what to remember. She doesn't answer right away. She goes for a walk around the block and buys a cheap umbrella because the sky just decided to change its mind. By the time she gets home, the decision has settled. Okay, she replies, but no spectacle. No spectacle, he sends, just truth. The week before the gala is ordinary, in the way Lily has come to cherish sprints, stand-downs, one gnarly failure that turns out to be a misconfigured feature flag. Boss writes, where she's just another person with headphones, dinners, where cooking means hitting something and calling it enough. Ethan keeps a respectful distance close enough to be useful, far enough to be breathable. When he does appear, It's with a question that is becoming his favorite managerial tool. What do you need less of? Noise, she says, and the kind of phrase that turns me into a poster. Don't, he says, and he means it. He declines 3 podcast invites and a glossy profile. He accepts 1 panel on systems that protect people and promises Lily she can sit it out or sit beside him, her choice. On Friday, a small garment bag appears on the back of Lily's chair. No logo. A handwritten card, borrowed not bought. Return when you're ready. M. Mara has good taste and better strategy. Inside is a midnight blue gown, clean lines, elegant, uncomplicated. Lily tries it on at home alone. It fits like someone believes she might need it. She looks at herself in the mirror for a long time. She doesn't see a Cinderella moment. She sees a woman who solved what needed solving and refused to be talked out of her own competence. The dress isn't the story. It's just what she's wearing when the story walks into another room. The invitation says the gala starts at 7. The real event, the next hinge in a life that keeps finding new ways to open, starts right on time. Galas always pretend to be effortless. Reality 100 people working backstage, so the chandeliers can look like they hung themselves. The innovators of the future, gala is no different. Gold light silver tableware, the soft hum of money and ideas trying to share a sentence. Ethan arrives in a classic black tuxedo. Lily arrives 5 minutes later in the midnight blue gown Mara loaned her flats, tucked under the hem, because Grace doesn't require heels. They agreed on 2 rules, no spectacle, no surprises. A week ago, in the quiet of the staff kitchen, over paper cups of tea, Ethan had asked a different kind of question. If a moment ever felt right in public, is that okay with you? Not a plain permission. Lily had thought about it for a long time and said, if it's simple and true, he promised. They sit near the back because vantage points matter. Lily watches the screens roll through nominees with bios that sound like elevator pitches learned by heart. She looks like a person who wandered into the wrong room until you notice the posture. She belongs where decisions meet daylight. The final envelope appears. The presenter smiles with the kind of pause that makes cameras lean in. The award for most influential young innovator she reads goes to Lily Brooks. For one suspended second, the room goes quiet, the way a system pauses at exactly the right checkpoint. Lily doesn't move until Ethan's hand finds hers and squeezes once. Go. This is yours. She stands on legs that used to spend nights on boss floors and walks through a corridor of strangers whose applause sounds like relief remembering its manners. On the stage, the lights are warm, not blinding. The host steps aside. The mic is too tall. Lily lowers it 1 notch, which somehow makes the entire moment feel more honest. I never thought I'd be up here, she begins. Her voice isn't broadcast strong. It's human strong. For years I hid. Behind mop handles, behind excuses, behind fear. I believe brilliance needed a title to be seen. She glances across the crowd and finds the version of herself who once wiped the desk and left a pencil note that solved the failure no one could name. Sometimes she continues brilliance is just staying late to fix something no one asked you to. Sometimes it's doing the right thing when no one's watching. Sometimes it's the courage to try one more time. The room is still the good kind, the kind where people are actually listening. I didn't do this alone, she adds. Someone saw me before I saw myself. He gave me room, not a spotlight. Credit, not a narrative. That changes everything. She looks toward Ethan's table. He isn't there. He is walking onto the stage. It isn't a sweep or a spectacle. No string swell, no kneel. Just Ethan in a tux with quiet hands and a face that looks like a decision made well. He stops at a respectful distance, 1 hand behind his back, the other in his pocket, because nerves don't care how much you net last quarter. You saved our systems, he says softly. Mike, catching the words without exaggerating them. You saved this company from losing its way, and you saved something in me I didn't know needed saving. He brings the hand from behind his back, a small velvet box, a soft glint. You didn't just fix code, he says. You taught me to design for what's real. Will you? He breathes once steady, marry me. Lily's hands fly to her mouth because bodies do what they do before brains catch up. Tears, yes. Laughter, a little. But mostly clarity. Not because of the ring, because of the promise she hears underneath no spectacle. Simple, true. Yes, she whispers first to herself, then to the room, louder, yes. Applause breaks like weather, not frenzy, gratitude. Ethan slides the ring onto her trembling hand. They fold into a brief embrace that doesn't try to be cinematic. When they turn back to the audience, they look exactly like themselves, surprised, grounded, slightly amused that life sometimes cooperates. The band plays them gently toward the wings. Backstage, the coordinator, who sees everything, mouths, congrats, and hands them each a glass of water like they just finished a sprint. They laugh because she's right. Outside, under a patch of night, the chandelier light can't reach the two of them. Take a breath without microphones. The city hums like a well-tuned cluster. You okay, Ethan asks. I'm Lily says, surprised by how true it is. Simple, true. He grins. Simple, true. They don't stay long after. They say the necessary congratulations, sign the necessary forms, dodge the unnecessary microphones. PR catches up eyes big but voice disciplined. Next steps, they ask. Boundaries, Ethan says. He looks to Lily. Later she says the word that has become a policy. PR nods. A boundary respected is momentum, not delay. The next morning, headlines do what headlines do. From code to commitment. The maid who saved the launch and the CEO who listened where design meets devotion. The internet builds a myth. Crosstech does not. Mara posts a two-line internal note. Congratulations to Lily and Ethan. Attribution standards remain unchanged. The work still speaks first. It's the right sentence at exactly the right time. MIT calls again, not just with reinstatement, but with an option, part-time track remote seminars, a local lab partner willing to sponsor a hybrid finish. Lily reads the email twice. She doesn't say yes that day. She prints it and pins it by her desk, not as a promise, as a door she can open when she wants. The care center reports what really matters. Her mother slept through the night, pain levels down, appetite up. Lily brings a crossword book and sits by the bed, tracing boxes with her finger. You look taller, her mother says again, and now they both laugh because the line belongs to them. At CrossTech, nothing magical happens, and that's the magic. Incident reviews stay human. Dashboards stop rewarding vanity metrics. The permissions queue never clocks again because the team redesigns it instead of ritualizing it. Lily consults more formally credits stamped in the places that count. She still cleans sometimes her own desk, the corners of rooms that matter because order is not about image, it's about respect. The loan agreement stays alone per her insistence. She sets up autopay and watches the first tiny installment leave her account. It's not about money, it's about agency. Ethan never tries to cancel it. He understands the dignity of keeping your own promises. They talk about the proposal once when the city is soft and the balcony is colder than it looks. You had permission, she teases. I had permission, he says. And a panic attack, but mostly permission. They plan a small ceremony with the kind of logistics that only two operators could love an afternoon close friends, no drones. If the story leaks, fine. If it doesn't, better. Either way, it won't be the point. What is the point? The thing Lily said on a stage and now lives at work. Safety isn't repetition, it's design. Leadership isn't spotlight, it's space. Love, at least the kind that survives production, looks a lot like listening. The company tilts just a few degrees toward those truths. Degrees are how ships miss icebergs. Months later, at an all-hands that is refreshingly boring, a junior dev presents a fix to a gnarly race condition. The slide says, author Jay Nguyen with Lily Brooks. No one claps. They nod and take notes. That's the culture working. That's the point. And the story you came for, the one about a $200 million stall undone in seconds, ends the way good systems do not, with fireworks but with uptime. The city outside still sleeps. Inside there's work worth waking up for.